Alright friends, you would have finished writing these points. Let us move ahead and now take up an illustrative example given in your textbook as question number 1. So what is given over here? B Limited has leased several items of office equipments, some of them for less than 12 months and some for more than 12 months with none containing purchase options. If B Limited wishes to use short-term lease exemption, explain how should it apply the exemption requirement. So friends, I have already explained you this point. Let us simply write up the answer for this question. So you know one thing, that the lease will be separately identified for each item. That means this will be a decision taken on item by item basis, whether it is pertaining to short term or long term. So how would you write up the answer? Just pay attention to this. Assuming that the items of office equipments are all considered to be of the same class, if the entity wishes to use the short-term lease exemption, it must apply that exemption for all of the leases with terms of 12 months or less. The leases with terms longer than 12 months will be accounted for in accordance with general recognition and measurement requirements for leases. That means if that exemption is not taken, simply Ind AS 116 entirely will apply on those items. So friends, take note of this answer and then we shall move ahead. Alright friends, you would have finished writing this whole thing. Now definitely the answer is complete, but I would want you to write an additional note. This additional note is for your understanding and knowledge. This note does not form part of this answer. So just write up that note. A lessee that makes this election must make certain quantitative and qualitative disclosures about short-term leases. Once a lessee establishes a policy for a class of underlying assets, all future short-term leases for that class are required to be accounted for in accordance with the lessee's policy. I have explained you this point as well. So the moment you have started classifying certain types of leases as short-term, later on also if you come across such leases on a short-term basis, you have earlier opted the policy of taking this election of exemption, right? That is recognition exemption. Later on also you should be consistent with your policy if you are a lessee. So take note of this and then we shall move ahead. Alright friends, you would have finished writing this whole thing. Let us move ahead and now take up question number 2. Let us read this question. So what we can find, question number 2 is given with two different scenarios, scenario A and scenario B. Now let us first focus on scenario A. A lessee enters into a lease with a 9-month non-cancelable term with an option to extend the lease for 4 months. So what we find originally is 9 months is the original period and the lease can be extended by another 4 months. So 9 plus 4 will be 13 months, provided the lessee is exercising the option of extension. Further it says the lease does not have a purchase option, and at the lease commencement date the lessee is reasonably certain to exercise the extension option. Now this is something very important. What we can find over here, at the lease commencement date the lessee is reasonably certain to exercise the extension option. Now they have given reason also, because the monthly lease payment during the extension period are significantly below market rates, whether the lessee can take a short term exemption in accordance with Ind AS 116. So would you be classifying this as a short term lease? The answer is obviously no, because the original lease term is for 9 months and it can be further extended by 4 months where we have already discussed that the extension is reasonably certain to happen. That means this 9 plus 4 total duration of the lease term becoming 13 months, definitely the lease cannot be classified as a short term lease, and therefore that exemption under Ind AS 116 cannot be availed. Now let us do one thing. Let us focus on scenario B. Scenario B says assume the same facts as scenario A. Same facts as scenario A, except at the lease commencement date the lessee is not reasonably certain to exercise the extension option, because the monthly lease payments during the optional extension period are at what the lessee expects to be market rates, and there are no other factors that would make exercise of renewal option reasonably certain. Now, what will happen now? The only difference in scenario A and scenario B, here the lessee is not reasonably certain to exercise the extension option. Now what will happen? If there is no reasonable certainty to exercise the extension option, what would happen simply is the lessee would consider the original lease term of 9 months. So the original lease term of 9 months, if you consider, definitely you can classify the lease as short term lease. So what we can conclude for scenario A, we cannot classify this as a short term lease, so answer would be no. And in scenario B, definitely this is classifiable as a short term lease, answer will be yes. So let us see how to properly present the answer to this question. So in the answer you would write first for scenario A, as the lessee is reasonably certain to exercise the extension option, the lease term is greater than 12 months, that is 13 months. Therefore, the lessee will not account for the lease as a short term lease. Now scenario B answer would be, in this case the lease term is less than 12 months, that is just 9 months. Thus, the lessee may account for the said lease under the short term lease exemption, that is, it recognizes the lease payments as an expense on either a straight line basis over the lease term or another systematic basis. So friends, one thing, this exemption is not a mandate, this is an option given to the lessee, correct? So there is no compulsion on the lessee. If the lessee still wants to apply Ind AS 116 in its entirety, nobody is stopping that. This is an exemption given, you may or may not avail this exemption. So obviously, why would someone enter into accounting complication? So generally the lessees are expected to take the benefit of this exemption, and what I want you to do now is quickly write up the answers for both the scenarios, and then we shall move ahead. So friends, what we have just discussed over here is about short term leases. So if you look into one thing, the standard is so clear about defining a short term lease. A lease of 12 months or less. The lease should not provide an option of purchase to the lessee, and thirdly, this period testing has to be at the inception of the lease. That's all, the end, crystal clear. However, when it comes to the other aspect of availing that exemption is the lease of assets of low value. Now you should know one thing, this low value asset or lease of assets of lower value has not been explicitly defined under Ind AS 116. So there are certain conditions given. Once you find those conditions applicable, you would say that the asset is of low value. That means here lot of judgmental aspect has been involved. The lessee has to use its judgment to decide whether there is a lease of asset of low value or not. So friends, where there is a specific criteria given in the standard, we do not have confusion. So question coming in examination, you can write the answer easily. But where the lessee has to use judgment in practical real life. As a student in examination, you will also have to apply your judgment to decide whether the lease is of low value asset or not. So friends, pay more attention when you are dealing with this part, and whatever conditions are being mentioned, you should note it down carefully. So once again I would say, there is no specific limit of an amount, that if this is the amount or a lesser amount than that, it will be considered low value, a higher amount will be considered high value, nothing like that. There are in fact conditions given. On fulfillment of those conditions only you can judge whether the lease is of low value asset or not. So let us note down those important points. So let us write down what we have just discussed about leases of low value assets. Ind AS 116 does not explicitly define the leases of low value assets. It provides the conditions based on which an asset can be treated as of low value, and the said exemption can be availed accordingly for such low value assets. So friends, I have already explained you this. Quickly take note of these 2 points, and then I will go into details of how can we identify an asset is of low value or not. Take note of this quickly. Alright friends, you would have finished writing this thing. Let us move ahead and now talk about what are those 2 conditions. So an underlying asset can be of low value only if both the following conditions are satisfied. Number 1, the lessee can benefit from use of the underlying asset on its own or together with other resources that are readily available to the lessee. Second, the underlying asset is not highly dependent on or highly interrelated with other assets. So friends, before you write up these points, let me provide some explanation. If you look into these 2 conditions, condition number 1 is the lessee should be benefited from the use of the leased assets on its own without depending on other assets. That means first condition is the lessee should be capable of deriving economic benefits directly from the use of that asset, which is a small asset, and that asset should be capable of providing the economic benefit to the lessee on its own. Second condition is the asset, the small asset, should not be highly interdependent or interrelated with other assets. A simple example could be, suppose I have taken a car under a lease and the lessor has made another arrangement of providing the car tires to me. Now the car tires, which is a small separate arrangement of lease, the tires cannot be used independently on their own, right? I cannot derive any economic benefit from those tires. The tires have to be used along with the car. That means the tire itself cannot give me economic benefit, point number 1. On the other side, the use of the tire is highly interdependent or interrelated to the use of the car. That means in that case, the asset cannot be classified as an asset of low value. So now you may proceed and write up these points along with this example that I have just mentioned. Now I have already given you this example also. An entity may lease a car and the lease includes the use of the tires attached to the car. The tires can only be used with the car, and as such they are dependent on or highly interrelated with the car. Therefore, the tires would not qualify for low value asset exemption. So quickly take note of this whole thing and then we shall move ahead. Alright friends, you would have finished writing this whole thing. Let us move ahead and use this concept for solving question number 3. So in question number 3, what is given? H Limited enters into a rental contract for a large number of laptops. Each laptop within the contract constitutes an identified asset. H Limited has considered that the value of individual laptop would be low even though the contract for all the laptops is not. Can H Limited opt for exemption from recognition under Ind AS 116? So what we can identify based on the concept that we have learnt earlier, that in this case each laptop will be considered as an asset of small value even though the quantity of laptop is large number, but the decision has to be taken not on the overall volume of the asset taken under lease, but asset by asset basis the decision has to be taken. Therefore, definitely H Limited can opt for exemption from recognition under Ind AS 116 in the given scenario. So let us see how to write up the answer. In the answer, you would simply write that as per Ind AS 116, the election for leases for which the underlying asset is of low value should not be made on group basis and can be made on a lease by lease basis, or you may say asset by asset basis. The conditions of Ind AS 116 in the given case are satisfied, that is, the entity can benefit from use of an individual laptop together with other resources that are readily available, and each laptop does not need other assets to make it functional. It is on its standalone basis, it is usable, correct? Consequently, each laptop qualifies as a low value asset and the entity can elect to apply the low value exemption to all the laptops under the contract. So friends, take note of this whole thing and then we shall move ahead. Alright friends, after writing up this answer, let us discuss some more points which are very important. Now when you are applying this judgment of whether the asset is of low value or not, you should look into one thing, that the value of asset should necessarily be the value of the new asset. What I am trying to say is, suppose I have taken a car under a lease, and that car happens to be a very old car. It has been in use for past 12 years by the lessor, and then I have taken it under lease. The depreciated value and the fair value of that car today is just rupees 40,000. Today a mobile phone would be of a higher price compared to that old car, correct? Now can I claim that that asset having fair value of just 40,000 is anyway an asset of low value? Can I claim that exemption? The answer is no. I cannot claim that exemption because the depreciated value or the fair value today of that old car is very low, agreed. But when you are applying this judgment, you have to look into if the same car, same model, if it would have been purchased today as a new asset, the brand new asset, was that value of the new asset a smaller value or a low value? If the answer is yes, go ahead and take the exemption. If the answer is no, you cannot take that exemption. That means the value of the asset should not be the value of an old asset which has been in use past so many years. It should be the value of the new asset which should be considered for deciding whether the asset would come under the category of low value or not. Second important point, you should apply this concept on a standalone absolute basis. That means regardless of the fact that how much material it is for the lessee. For example, suppose the value of a laptop rupees 40,000 and the nature of business of the lessee is of a very small business where laptop happens to be the most important asset in that business of the lessee. That means it is one of the most material asset for the lessee, regardless of the fact that how much material the leased asset is for the lessee. If it is on absolute basis a low value asset, it is a low value asset. Thirdly, what we have learned from this illustration, that the size, the volume of the assets should not be considered while applying this judgment. So this has to be taken on individual asset basis, not on the volume basis certainly. So friends, let us write up these important points as well. Consider the following important points regarding the leases of low value assets. Value of an underlying asset to be assessed based on the value of the asset when it is new, regardless of the age of the asset being leased. Leases of low value assets are exempted regardless of whether those assets are material to the lessee. Examples of low value underlying assets can include tablet, personal computers, small items of office furniture, telephones. And finally, the assessment performed on an absolute basis, it is not affected by the size, nature or circumstances of the lessee. So friends, please note down these points as well, and then we shall move ahead. Alright friends, after writing up these points, one more important point that I would want to talk about. Now see what happens. Suppose you have taken an asset under lease and that asset happens to be an asset of low value. Now you have given that asset again to me under a sublease arrangement. That means there is a lessor, then it is you who is involved as a lessee. There was an arrangement between the lessor and lessee, that means where you are the lessee, and then there was a sublease arrangement where you are the lessor and I am the lessee. So your agreement with the main lessor, the owner of the asset, is the head lease, and your agreement with me is a sublease. Forget about me. You are the person who is lessee under the head lease and the lessor under a sublease. So if you talk from my viewpoint, I would say that yes, I have taken that asset under a lease, that asset is of small value, matter ends. For you, if you are a lessee and the asset is of a low value asset and you have subleased that asset to me, that means you are lessee under a head lease, and head lease are not considered for taking this exemption. That means you will not be eligible to take that exemption under Ind AS 116 because you have subleased that asset. In simple words, if I want to fit this whole thing into one line, I would say I have taken an asset of low value under a lease. I can definitely claim exemption. But the moment I sublease that asset to a third party, I will not be eligible to claim that exemption. I will have to apply Ind AS 116 in its entirety. Let us write down this important point as well. Head leases do not qualify as low value assets. So if a lessee subleases an asset or expects to sublease an asset, the head lease does not qualify as a lease of a low value asset. Therefore, lessee cannot account for the head lease as a lease of low value asset. So friends, quickly take note of this important point and then we shall move ahead. Alright friends, you would have finished writing this whole thing. Let us move ahead and write up one more important note which we have again discussed already. So that is about, if the lessee is taking the exemption, what should be the approach of accounting that should be followed. So we have discussed this point already. If the lessee has taken the exemption, the lessee need not apply Ind AS 116 in entirety for such leased asset. The lessee can simply systematically allocate the expense over the lease term, either on a straight line basis or on other systematic basis. So do one thing, write up this note as well. Alright friends, after discussing all these matters, we finally land up at a very important criteria laid down by the standard. Ind AS 116 requires that at the inception of the contract, both the parties, that is the supplier and the customer, in other words the lessor and the lessee, both the parties needs to decide at the inception of the contract that whether there is involvement of a lease or not. I repeat, at the inception of the contract, both the parties, supplier and customer, needs to identify whether there is involvement of a lease within the contract or not. Now, obviously, to look into whether a contract involves a lease, you need to know what is the meaning of lease. Now friends, I told you earlier, it is the definition of lease which is very important in this regard. What is a lease? Let us look into the definition of the lease. Lease is a contract which conveys the right to control the use of the asset. I repeat, a lease is a contract that conveys. So who is conveying to whom? The lessor is conveying to the lessee. What? The right to control. Control what? The use of the asset. And this cannot be any asset. It has to be an identified asset. Secondly, it has to be for a specific time period which has to be mentioned under the lease. And obviously it has to be for a consideration. So if I sum up all these factors, I get the complete definition of lease. A lease is a contract that conveys right to control the use of an identified asset for a period of time for some consideration. So friends, this definition and the requirement of Ind AS 116, it is very important.